It's not left, it's not right, it's the state versus you. Alex Ansary, Outside the Box.
Smashing through layers of fragmented pieces of propaganda, I'm Alex Ansary, coming to you from our base in Portland, Oregon, September 14th, 2006. And we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. I'm going to get some announcements out of the way before we go to our guest tonight. Number one, the last 9/11 event had a very large turnout that we talked about last week. Definitely more than 200 people in attendance, and many people were in fact turned away at the door because, in fact, the theater couldn't hold any more people. So it was a really positive event in that regard as well, and the Oregonian on Friday recommended it as the top movie of the week to see. Also, Wayne Madison, who used to work for the NSA as a computer analyst, is speaking out on 9/11 and government-sponsored terror and the rising police state. We need to find a place for him to speak on November 1st. If anyone has a club or a ballroom that's available on November 1st, please call me tonight or tomorrow as soon as you can, and let's set something up for that. And he's going to be on this show on the 2nd. Aaron Russo, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, is going to be on this program on the 28th of November. And we're going to be doing also a program on astrology and the influence of Mars upon planet Earth and the people on planet Earth, and that's next week. Also, there's a couple of other things which we'll save for later. In the meantime, we start our program tonight with Paul Richmond, who's calling all the way from Seattle, Washington. Now, before we go to him, we're going to show you just a quick clip from his documentary film, Urban Warrior. Stick around.
Protect life and property, detect and arrest offenders of the law, preserve the peace, enforce the law, and prevent crime.
You make the arrests, bring them to court, be as peaceful as you can and non-judgmental. The judgment comes at the court.
A police officer who's to restore the peace by getting an alleged bad guy alive, whenever possible, and bringing him before a magistrate.
A civilian police officer is taught from the police academy and all through his career to use the minimum force necessary to accomplish the mission. The military is trained to use overwhelming force, deadly force, to win a battle and to win wars.
Their role has historically been, and their training today still involves, using a tremendous amount of firepower to eliminate a threat.
There's a fundamental difference between police and soldiers. And one of the transformations that we've seen take place is that a lot of the tactics, methodology of soldiering have been applied to the police.
Now, Paul Richmond is also a lawyer in private practice, a private practice lawyer in Seattle, Washington. And we're going to talk with him for about the next 20 minutes about this film and what inspired him to make this excellent documentary. Are you there, Paul?
I sure am. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And, you know, I watched this film recently, and there were a lot of good points that were made in that film. I was curious, were you at the WTO protest in 2003?
Oh, gosh, yeah. 2001. I'm sorry, 1999 was the one in Seattle, if that's what you're talking about.
Right.
The 1999 ones. Yeah, I was did a lot of the organizing behind it. I set up one of the legal observer programs, as one of the people who set up the IMC, and probably know about as much as anyone as to what took place on the streets during that time period.
One of the concepts in the film that really stood out for me, Paul, that I hope you can elaborate on, is this idea of the militarization of the police, and also some would say the policification of the military, that is the merging of the military and the police, and the erosion of the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, I believe.
Sure.
This is something that a lot of Americans are new to. It's something that I've talked to a lot about, and others have. I see that you have. But in this post 9/11 world, can you elaborate a little further on what we're really dealing with?
Well, I mean, I think even a more productive route to talk, given our amount of time that we've got, would be to look at the way that a lot of this actually has its origins in Portland, and under the programs that were literally created by the current mayor, Tom Potter, who came in to his current reign as mayor as a progressive. Portland is a place where you had a lot of programs tried out on a local level that were then exported nationally. To just understand the power structure of this country, you just look at the way the railroads were set up, and you see that you had a lot of the main fortunes that are still with us, guiding that they would be given huge areas of land with huge resources around it, and you have a lot of the big banks, timber industries, mineral companies, oil companies, and so forth set up around that. The way that most areas like Portland and Oregon and most of the states in this country then are set up is that they're dominated from economic interests outside those areas, basically those conglomerations. Fast forward to Portland in the 90s, and you've got a Democratic president, and money is not, the money is not necessarily beholden to the Democrats or the Republicans, but there's some loyalty party to party. So the Democratic Party is looking, and they see how many states are there that have a Democratic governor and Democratic governor and then Democratic mayor in the largest city. Not many, so we get left with Oregon and Portland, and they start trying out these programs. There were these things called the benchmarks. If you look at things like the Oregon Strategic Plan, they began trying out a lot of these programs, basically corporatizing the state. In terms of community policing, we became sort of a touchstone for this thing, and a lot of us have this nice sort of touchy-feely sound when we hear the terms like community policing. In fact, that was really the way that we began this sort of militarization of the police,
now,
directly
Paul,
under Mr. Potter. You want to take a look at it, Potter's real record, and Potter came in, I guess, complaining about the militarization of the police under Croker. a really very telling document is the February 1994 City Auditor's Report in the City of Portland, which anyone should be able to get at. If not, I still have copies of it. But you start looking at the way the actual numbers of the police came in. Potter, in theory, supposedly added all these new police to the street, but when you start penciling them out with the numbers of police that they were patrolling, people that they were patrolling, the numbers of patrol officers went down, and the number of contacts with people went down. And what happened at the same time, the Tactical Operations Division grew from 2 to 56 officers in the space of 4.5 years. Tactical Operations Division is the one that runs the SWAT team, or CERT team actually in Portland, Special Emergency Response Team, but the equivalent of the SWAT team that you see portrayed in the movie Urban Warrior.
Well, yeah, on
under
the topic.
community policing, you have this guise of like learning what the community is doing. Well, the way that they're funding all of this, and the way that they eventually exported into the 1995 Clinton crime bill, which puts 100,000 new cops on the street, is through asset forfeiture and the asset forfeiture fund. So, in terms of what was going on there, they basically were training these police, the nice touchy-feely police, to who were supposedly community policing police, to come in there, learn about who had what gripes on which person, things like that, and then they would turn around and use that information to go in there and break down people's door and confiscate their property. And by information, I mean things like, is your neighbor you having disputes with? Maybe doing a little bit of pot, or is there some problem with their family? Or are they maybe hitting their kid a little too hard or something? Anything that might give the police a chance to knock down the doors and confiscate property. And under the local programs and the national programs, there were these grants that were in for a few years to get all these new cops in place. And once the cops were in place, the grants went away, and the cops became self-funding through confiscating that property. And, on a local level, every person who started out as a lieutenant in charge of community policing, and that would include people like Lieutenant Greg Clark of the Portland Police, Lieutenant Mark Parisi of the Portland Police, then went on and became captain of the Tactical Operations Division in charge of knocking down the doors and confiscating the property. Is that making sense?
Well, Paul,
Been talking for a while.
To be honest with you, it's a little bit frightening. When I brought you on, I was thinking, because we had talked a lot about the police state in terms of on the federal level, the federalization of the local departments. But to hear you speak with so much detail and information about the local level on its own, I find frightening.
Yeah, well, and it's, I think it's a little bit harder to look at, but I'd forwarded you some articles like I'd written. I don't know if you necessarily aware of what I'd done when I lived in Portland from like 1990 to 1998 and did a lot of very extensive looking at what the police were doing, which is why I know a lot of this information from that period. And you got to see this program. There was this program called the Oregon Option, which was signed by every major political figure in Oregon in December of 1992, I believe. As Roberts was going in and Kitsapper was coming in, signed by every member of the Clinton administration, every major politician in Oregon, to literally use Oregon as a laboratory. That was in areas of education, social services, workforce development, and literally was put in place to let the corporations and the money behind them design a test market for how the country would be developed. You start looking at things like, the documents put out by the Oregon Progress Board, and just look at their annual reports, and it's all very detailed in a very Machiavellian way. So that's sort of one of the things that I think is going on in that state. At least I haven't. As I moved to Washington in 1999 and haven't been in a position to watch it as closely. But did publish most of what I knew in different publications before I left.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I really appreciate you providing that information. One of the things I'm curious about is that there are a lot of us that are seeing an incremental police state, some would call, the erosion of the civil liberties in the post-9/11 world. My question to you is, where do you see the cause of this police state? Why is it here? Whether it be, the real reason, in your opinion.
Yeah, you want to go to the causes of it. I think a really good place to start is the article in the book called The Coming Anarchy by Robert Kaplan. Kaplan came out with it in like 1993 originally, years before PNAC and Project for New American Century. And what he is saying is he's writing from the standpoint of those who own most of what it is that can be owned. And he's saying, well, we've got this huge environmental catastrophe that's coming in. And eventually, if you realize you can't have an economy if you don't have an ecological base. It just stands to reason. If you're rationalist, you have two alternatives. You can try and preserve, rebuild the ecological base, and then maybe save the system. Or if you think it's too far gone, then you end up basically just setting up these systems of control. So that as the whole thing starts to collapse.
At the WTO protest a few years ago,
I'm sorry?
In your video, there's a scene that I want to ask you a question about, where I believe it was a council member of the city that was hit by
Brian Derdowski.
Yeah, that was hit.
County council.
Who was hit by a rubber bullet in the scene, and I was wondering if there's any repercussions against the officer who struck him.
None that I'm aware of. No, none that I'm aware of.
I find that odd. I would think. I mean, a lot of us know that many police are corrupt or don't necessarily respect the Constitution, but to see something like that be allowed to go on, I don't understand. Is that what happened? They just didn't make an issue out of it?
I don't know what Mr. Derdowski did specifically. In general, it's very difficult to sue police successfully in court. There are few, if any, lawyers in the country that are able to make a full-time career of it. You have people who are mostly able to do it part-time. It's a very expensive sort of litigation, and the amount of trust that people normally portray in cops. You only need, if you get into a federal case, you only need one person to go against you, and everything just goes to 1,000 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was some part of the motivation.
Yeah. How concerned should someone be that's watching this program maybe for the first time and is new to some of the clips that we're about to show? We're going to show a clip when we're finished speaking on Urban Warrior. But someone that's concerned, should they be concerned? And if they are concerned, what should they be doing if they want to be a part of the solution?
Well, I think studying it, going to every public meeting. When I was in Portland, there was a program where they tried allowing the National Guard to take place in drug raids, and by just using the tool you're using now, cable access and going to public meetings, we were able to get that program killed back in 1993. So you just have to constantly exert a lot of pressure, go to public meetings, and be as detailed and honest as you can in going after the information.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely important to be proactive. One last question. You also made this film with someone else?
Matt Ealing was the main director of it. I was a consultant and researcher and producer, yeah.
Okay. So if someone wanted to go to learn more about Urban Warrior, where's the quickest place for them in Portland to go? Rent it or check it out?
You can Google us, and would be good. Google the name Urban Warrior, and that would be it. Matt is actually in the process now of putting together a website with a lot of the clips used in it, and they were, literally close to about 50, 60 hours of interviews with these different people that I think people really should see these. People who are interested should have the access to see it. So we're trying to make that available as well.
Sure. Sure, and on my website there's a link to you where people can
thank
go and
you.
learn more about the film. I thank you for appearing on the program tonight, and I really hope that, one of the things that I've been saying to the audience is not necessarily always a matter of whether we win or lose this fight, it's that we're at least standing up for what we believe in and protecting our rights.
Well, and we can win.
Yeah, I believe we can if we put our heads together.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye. And Paul Richmond, of course, has been, you heard him, he protested back in 1999. He's seen the progression, but it's a lot scarier now. In the old days it was just rubber bullets and batons. Now we're moving into a new future of a new type of urban warrior with unmanned aerial vehicles and weapons, sound weapons, and other types of stuff like we're going to talk about later on. On the topic of Aaron Russo that I mentioned earlier, and he's going to be appearing on September 28th. I believe I said November earlier. Aaron Russo hasn't been doing very well. He has cancer of the bladder. His doctor has told him that he is very lucky to be alive. And I'm going to send him my prayers. And I ask you to join me in doing that because he's against the odds. And he's flying to a few events against his doctor's orders, but he's not going to fly to this one, and he did really want to be here in Portland for the screening. But he asked me to tell all of you he needs support for this showing coming up in Portland, for people to post flyers, let people know about freedom to fascism, and exactly the message that he's spreading, and that this entire system, this Federal Reserve system, this system that we live under that takes our money away from us and puts it into the war is in fact illegal. And his film, I believe, is going to show you that. And I saw the film, and it is excellent. So he's depending on you, Portland. He really is. And in this next clip, you're going to see that that part of Urban Warrior, in a way, filmed and given to you in a perspective, not in a way that you'll ever see on ABC or NBC on Fox News. You're witnessing the police state in front of you, but you're not being sold the police state. And my friends, that is a big difference. We'll be right back.
There's sort of a standard scenario for a room entry, the type of room entry that we used to teach. A pretty standard thing is to set up a breaching charge, usually made out of something called linear shape charge or jet axe. It's a commercial explosive. It's initiated by either a non-electric or electrical initiating device while a team lays up against the wall or around the corner or someplace near the actual breaching point. They pop the breaching charge and immediately go in.
Police! Police! Get down! Get down!
During that entry, they will employ some very basic close quarter battle tactics. And during that entry, they're all of them picking sectors based on their plan. Each person has a sector. It's a moving sector that moves with them, and in that sector, they identify, discriminate, and eliminate targets. The discrimination of targets is based on hands. When you go into a room, you look at hands. Whatever the threat is, it's going to be in their hands, and so that's the way you do that instant target discrimination, is you go straight in, look at hands. If there's a weapon in the hands during a dynamic entry, it does not matter what that weapon is doing. It's not the old deadly force criteria, you know, TOM, that they used to, threat, opportunity, and means, that the police train for the deadly force training. If the weapon's in the hands during a dynamic entry, that person dies. It's just automatic. It's automatic on a dynamic entry. Weapon in the hand, 2 rounds center of mass, and keep on going.
And I have one more announcement to make also before we end the program, and I forget to make it. Elizabeth Atlee, who's a producer here at Portland Community Media, made an excellent film, Left to Die. Thousands, and this is a synopsis of the film, thousands of survivors of Hurricane Katrina who were promised refuge were instead taken to a freeway intersection where they were pinned in by machine gun-toting military personnel and subjected to indescribably inhumane treatment. See and hear firsthand accounts from survivors of what they refer to as the Causeway concentration camp. The Portland premiere is going to be at the Hollywood Theater Wednesday, September 27th at 7 p.m. And you might want to arrive early to find parking because there's a lot of construction in that area. There's been a lot of construction in that part of the city for a while. There's actually a joke. Portland would be a nice city if they ever finished building it. But anyway, a lot of articles. We're going to take your phone calls in about 10 minutes. The first article, of course, is no surprise to me. We've heard about the NSA. We've heard about Verizon working together, sharing data about you. And of course, both, would love a world without network neutrality and access television. But the headline reads from the Raw story, high-level Verizon executive is, of course, an ex-official who long argued for more surveillance. Wow. I am so surprised. One of the highest level executives at Verizon Communications, second largest of the three major telecommunication firms, originally alleged to be providing the NSA with customer phone records, has strong, decades-long ties to the CIA, Congress, and the Department of Justice. Additionally, the same official has acted in an advisory capacity to the government as a private citizen for over 10 years since leaving office, arguing that restrictions to federal domestic surveillance capabilities be loosened, especially in cases involved terrorism. And I would add, it certainly does bring new meaning, new ideas to the phrase, you vote with your dollars. And a vote for Verizon then would be a vote for the NSA, a vote for Big Brother. But wait a minute. What if we only had Verizon to choose from? And if we wanted to communicate or have a cell phone, we would have to be a customer of Verizon. See, we would be hooked in the loop. We would be in this box within another box. It's like Russian dolls, pyramids inside pyramids. It seems to be no escape. Report number 2. 9/11 t-shirts are no exception. We talked about t-shirts with Arabic letters on them, the passenger being called out, the passenger being flagged by the other passengers based upon his Arabic t-shirt. That was last week. Well, this week, 9/11 t-shirts are no exception in a high school. Students are sent home for violating the school dress code. Ben said he was only trying to be patriotic when he wore his homemade t-shirt with the words, quote, remember 9/11 to Lincoln Park High School in Michigan. But his First Amendments were, I would say, violated, apparently when he was sent home, because apparently he was one of at least 7 students who violated the rules despite warnings by banning the district's dress code, which bans apparel with writing or pictures. He says he was, quote, frustrated, says the junior, whose desire to become a firefighter was fueled after the 9/11 attacks. It just made me so mad that I can't be patriotic. According to the ACLU of Michigan, this probably violates the students' rights, particularly because it allows students to wear clothing that encourages school spirit but bans other forms of expression. And what bothers me about that is we live in a country where parents have been imprisoned and punished for not sending their kids to a public school. So if you obey the law and we send all our kids to the public school where the official view of reality is just beamed in their minds, why then is the school, despite what the district superintendents believe should be done, why should they then be allowed to tell a child what they can and cannot wear on their t-shirt? From a young age, they begin back in the reptilian mind, in the subconscious, in the part of the brain that we don't access all the time or always know it's there, deep down inside, they begin to become submissive, to wear what people tell them to wear, to never question the authority when they say you can't wear that t-shirt, to get in your classroom to get on a plane. It's just that simple. It's to get in this free speech zone, just like in Seattle back in 1999. No. Don't question. Don't question. And certainly don't question the next report, report number 3. And it gets stranger when we talk about the sound weapons and the so-called non-lethal weapons. With the Air Force chief noting that test weapons on testy U.S. mobs would be, in fact, a really good idea to get used to the weapons and really see what you can do with them. Non-lethal weapons such as high-power microwave devices should be used on American citizens in crowd control situations before being used on the battlefield, the Air Force Secretary said on Tuesday. The object is basically public relations. Domestic use would make it easier to avoid questions from others about possible safety considerations, says the Secretary, Michael Wine. If we were not willing to use it here against our fellow citizens, he's saying, then we should not be willing to use it in a wartime situation. The Air Force is paid for research into non-lethal weapons, but he said the service is unlikely to spend more money on development until injury problems are reviewed by medical experts and resolved. Well, there are so many articles in that area alone. Just about impossible to cover. All the articles from the past week just talking about the new sophistication of new weaponry to not use in the battlefield, but to use here at home. But despite all of that, despite all of the articles and the information, a dam is broken in many regards. Driving from Mount Hood Community College last week, actually Monday, this week, on 9/11, I saw a girl and a couple guys, some teenagers from the local high school, with very large 9/11 was an inside job signs. Man, that made my day. So I'm curious how you celebrated 9/11, what you're dealing with, how you're interpreting this information, what you're doing already, and think other people should be doing as well. Or if you just want to make some comments on some of the articles, you can go ahead and call tonight, 503-288-4442 or 503-288-4448. And there's a lot of articles, a lot of information just on that issue of the new weaponry, the new military weaponry that's being used by the local police department. But in terms of surveillance, the next article, report number 5, report number 4, continues this journey towards new technology, new sophistication of tracking and tracing your children, with a headmaster in the United Kingdom now justifying fingerprinting pupils. Amazing. 1,400 of his pupils were fingerprinted after the parents were told about the scheme by letter. Children had their fingers scanned for a system that will replace the old-fashioned school registry with biometric scanners in every classroom. You're probably asking the question, what makes this article different than the other articles I read you about thumb scanning to eat? This is not thumb scanning to eat. This is thumb scanning to go to school. Apparently, all the parents did receive a letter at the beginning of the term asking them to contact us, the school, if they had any concerns. They said they had a couple parents call when we explained the procedure and the reasons why they were happy with that. Now, the system called Vericool was developed by Anion, a subsidiary of General Dynamics, a firm that specializes in developing systems for the military and intelligence services. It's going to register children for lessons by scanning their fingers. Again, this is South Wales in the United Kingdom. Scanning their fingers when they enter a classroom at the start of a lesson. And of course, that's no surprise at all that this company that has developed this is working with military intelligence, working with the local intelligence. And in the next report, there's no surprise either. In report number 5, worried CIA officers are now buying legal insurance. There are now plans to, let's just say, I don't know how to, the article speaks for itself. Picture, if you will, your money, your tax dollars, funding someone preparing a defense team to make sure that the CIA isn't held accountable. Imagine, if you will, worried CIA officers buying legal insurance. CIA counterterrorism officers have signed up in growing numbers for a government-reimbursed private insurance plan that would pay their civil judgments and legal expenses if they are suing or charged with criminal wrongdoing. Again, who's paying for that? Your tax dollars could be paying for their defense campaign. Now, according to current and former intelligence officers and others with knowledge of the program, the new enrollments reflect heightened anxiety at the CIA that officers may be vulnerable to accusations that they're involved in abuse, torture, human rights violations, misconduct, also including wrongdoing related to the September 11th attacks. True story. WashingtonPost.com, read it for yourself. They're concerned they may be charged or be vulnerable to accusations for wrongdoing regarding the September 11th attacks. So 9/11 Truth, with the latest MSNBC poll saying 59% of Americans believe that 9/11 was an inside job. My God. Being at this 9/11 event with people being turned away, amazing. Unheard of, literally. For a Portland group to put on a screening like that last year or the year before. A dam is breaking in the world of 9/11 Truth, but there's still a lot more work to do, especially with the next article. If you go to the next report, Syria is now blaming the United States for the latest embassy attack. Now, this disturbs me if, in fact, Syria's allegations are warranted. In fact, if their allegations turn out to be correct. The attack today, this is according to WorldNet Daily, against the U.S. Embassy in Damascus was orchestrated by American intelligence to embarrass the Syrian regime and extract political concessions, a senior member of the Ba'ath Party claimed to WorldNet Daily. He says, quote, we in the government are 100%, not 90 or 80, but 100% sure America was behind this attack, which is not the same as other attacks by Islamic groups. Only the Americans can succeed in carrying out an attack just 200 meters from President Assad's residence in the most heavily guarded section of Syria. The official claimed the United States first directed the attack, then ensured it was foiled to prove Syria is filled with terrorists and put us in a weak position. The U.S. did not foil the attack, however. Syrian security forces reportedly stopped the assailants after a 30-minute shootout, although there were some reports U.S. Marines stationed at the embassy took part in the firefight. I'm baffled. In a world of controlled information where journalists are being caught receiving money from the government to plant fake newscasts. That's another article from this week. You've got to wonder what they're trying to hide with this dam just waiting to be busted right open by us. And then you have Greg Palast being investigated. Some are saying there's a warrant after him. That may or may not be true. You could just say the intimidation on Greg Palast for what he has said and done is happening at this time. Greg Palast being under the thumb of Homeland Security, wanting to know where he is and what he's doing because he's under investigation for taking a picture of something he should not have taken a picture of. This is journalism in 2006. Just wait till 2007 comes. It's getting sicker. Anyway, 503-288-4442 or 503-288-4448. Sicker and sicker and sicker. Think back, I don't know, about 7-8 years ago when there was this controversy with Vanity Fair or a local fashion magazine here in the United States portraying heroin addicts and drug addicts as looking cool. There was outrage at this glamorization of a drug addiction that kills many, many people on our city streets. Well, some of you may also remember other things in the media that were key points that raised controversy on how the media's changed in terms of decency. And I'm not saying decency or indecency in terms of what I believe, in terms of what the public debate has been around, the spin, the rumors, things of that nature. So that was the controversy with Vanity Fair. There was also controversy with Abercrombie and Finch with their catalog last year. That is absolutely nothing compared to the picture before you on the screen right now. This Italian magazine, Vogue Italia, thinks it's sexy to show women being beaten by police officers, riot police officers. This is not taken from a pornography magazine. This is very important that you understand where I got this photograph. This is Vogue Italia, the equivalent of Vanity Fair in Italy. Mainstream publication. This is pop culture in Italy today. The pictures you see before you, there are 20 of these that they have put out. And it's caused a lot of controversy. That's how I've heard about it. I don't think the pictures are cool. I don't think that they're presented in the proper context. And I don't believe the directors behind this photo op are here to warn us of a police state. In fact, I believe they're selling you on a police state. I think we heard we have a phone call. Go ahead.
Some of the main columns and stuff.
Hello?
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 Goodbye?
Are you there?
I'm here all night.
Oh, okay.
Are you
What's
there?
going on?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you going to say anything?
Just that I think that 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah.
I've done research on the building at the library and stuff, and it shows in there where the buildings would have taken the hit from the planes.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have done enough damage to the main columns that held the building up.
It's true, and there was a recent debate between Dylan Avery and the co-director of Loose Change,
Yeah?
and the two editors of Popular Mechanics that say 9/11 conspiracy theorists are basically crazy. And their explanation that they gave on Democracy Now! Was that the jet fuel that shot down the elevator shaft was what caused the explosions in the basement.
Oh.
This is said, this absurdity has already been presented on national TV. This is those are the #1 debunkers that are being featured on mainstream television as the voices of reason to give some rationale behind all these conspiracy theories about 9/11. So what I'm trying to say is they have been thoroughly debunked by anyone who has a brain. And Loose Change, 6 times on Google, is in the top 100 for videos. That means they're being watched by millions online alone. You'll never hear about them in you'll hear about them if they can find a way to debunk them. But they're only responding to Loose Change it's because of their underground popularity. It started with the internet, and it spread from there at the grassroots level, thanks to many of you out there. It wasn't the mainstream. Did you have anything else to say?
No, that's about it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was that okay? So.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you've made that observation. And the information about 9/11 continues to change. The information to improve, to increase. We learn more and more about 9/11 every year. The reason is more and more ex-officials of the government are coming and adding another piece of the puzzle together, helping us understand more about 9/11 and how many intelligence agencies were actually involved with 9/11 outside of the United States, pertaining to the ISI, the MI5, and Mossad. And you look at all the prior warnings that we saw with 9/11. So there's a big focus on intelligence agencies and 9/11. It's always been there. In terms of the Mossad primarily with 9/11, their part is with information about 9/11 going on, but there's not as much information with Mossad wrongdoing in terms of logistical, physical implementation of 9/11. Most of that points to MI5, MI6, ISI, and CIA. We're going to go to the next article. You can call this good news. City removes fluoride from water. Fluoride will no longer be added to Del Rio, Texas's drinking water. The City Council made that decision Tuesday night after a presentation by John Maroney, a retired college biology professor who characterized fluoride as a poison and showed the council numerous research references that linked fluoride to higher rates of cancer and other health hazards. In his letter to the city requesting time to address the council, Moroni recommended that Del Rio cease fluoridating its water supply. He also noted in his letter that more than 70 communities have already stopped adding fluoride to their water, and also point out that European countries, Japan and China, do not add fluoride to their water supplies. I actually have a memory of the second grade being not physically forced to swish my mouth with fluoride, but it's what everyone had to do in between classes, swish with this. I mean, it's like one of the worst things. You don't know a lot when you're a kid, but I think when you're a kid, you have instincts that are correct. And the instinct I had that was correct when I did not take my fluoride, I'm like, you know what? Like some kids don't brush their teeth when they're young. Well, I was like that with fluoride. It was like, pretended I drank it, but didn't drink it because deep inside, I did not want that in my mouth. It was one of the worst things I ever tasted. It is a horrible thing to taste in its liquid form like that. And I don't know how many schools were doing that in the 80s. I don't know how many still do them in middle school, but fluoride's something to be looked at and pay attention to what is happening locally in Oregon on that issue as well. We're going to go to one more article after I hit this phone call. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Alec. I just wanted to tell you I very much enjoy the show. I've watched it for a long time. 9/11, how I chose to remember that date was it's also Gandhi's 100 years since Gandhi made the first speech on nonviolence. It was the 100th anniversary.
I just heard that yesterday.
Yeah, it was great. It motivated me. I was like, oh, this is something I can really, take hold of.
You got any good Gandhi quotes right now? Because I think we need them.
Not off the top of my head right now, but he's a great man.
Yeah.
And if we could learn to follow his example, I think we could, topple this government.
Haven't you seen more and more people questioning 9/11, talking about 9/11 than ever before?
Oh, definitely. I mean, as more people are educated about, a lot of the things, I saw that was an excellent debate on Democracy Now! And I was like, there are unanswered questions.
Yeah.
In the 9/11 Commission report, I actually read most of it, and it was horrible. They didn't ask any questions that were pertinent and didn't call so many experts that were, top FBI counterterrorism specialists that wanted to come forward.
Well, you made a good point. You actually made a good segue to this next article.
Great.
But yeah, it's amazing. But I'm glad that you're paying attention.
Yeah, keep up the good work, Alex.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, bye.
Now, he mentioned the 9/11 Commission. Okay, let's just rewind here. Bush initially asked Henry Kissinger to head that commission, and there was outcry from the public. War crimes. We know about Kissinger. Actually, a good friend of mine out in the hallway had said to me, if there's a hell, Henry Kissinger's going straight to it. And there isn't any doubt about how dark this creature is, this elitist, this member of many, many, many of the secret societies that we talk about. But on the point of Henry Kissinger, at least according to Associated Press, and this isn't in the inscriber, so relax, but Kissinger warns of possible war of civilizations. It's more the general basis, central core talking points of the neocons to make sure we enter this next world war. Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger warned that Europe and the United States must unite to head off a war of civilizations arising from a nuclear-armed Middle East. Okay. In an opinion column in the Washington Post, the renowned foreign policy expert said the potential for a global catastrophe dwarfed lingering transatlantic mistrust left over the Iraq War. common Atlantic policy backed by modern Arab states, must be a top priority, changing them, getting involved with their government, no matter how pessimistic the previous experience with such projects leaves one. In other words, no matter what happens now, we're going to continue this march. We're going to continue this no matter how many people die. You skip to the bottom of the article. He concluded by noting that observers wondered whether, after the Cold War, transatlantic ties could survive the loss of a common enemy. He says, quote, in this article, "We now know that we face the imperative of building a new world order or potential global catastrophe." I'm not paraphrasing, I'm quoting. "It can be done alone by either side of the Atlantic. Is that realization sufficient to regenerate common purpose?" I remember the 1983 speech of Ronald Reagan. "If we knew that extraterrestrials were coming to invade us, would the world not unite as a one world order to fight this external threat?" And we'll go to that phone call. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going? I call you all the time. Hey, I just wanted to say, hey, thank you. My first year in school was kindergarten, 74, 75. It was disgusting. I figured something was wrong like you did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I wanted to know, I missed the first half of your show, but George Norrie on the 11th of September had Alex Jones on, and they were talking about all that stuff, and I hope you caught it. I was listening to it while I was in bed, and I just wanted to say, if you commented on it, I'm sorry I missed it, but like you said, and by the way, Kissinger, I've been told, and I've read through some reports, was actually part of the Nazi youth member in Germany. That's what I've been told. I don't know how true that is.
He's friends with countless Nazis.
Pardon me?
He's friends with countless Nazis, and so is the Bush family. Yeah, they all have connections going back to the Nazi Party. Absolutely.
And it's all.
That is very key. That is very key. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I got to keep it short and brief for you, man. So I'm going to let you go now. But hey, I'll be. If I get home early enough from work next week, I'll be watching you. And thank you so much, my friend.
You have internet access?
No, my sister does.
Okay.
But I got alexansary.com, right?
Yeah.
All right, so if they pull this, I can always get you there.
Right. Google video.
Thank you, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Stay safe now.
Keep
it true.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And we're going to go to that last article right here, and then I have, on the topic of radio broadcasting, the stuff that's on the radio, I got some words for y'all. Next article, study, Earth and space weather is actually connected. I figure I'd throw a little information away, less conspiracy. Space weather in the upper reaches of the atmosphere is affected by weather conditions down here on Earth, a new study suggests. Using a combination of satellite imagery and computer simulations, researchers found that tides of air created by intense thunderstorms over South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia are all altering the structure of the ionosphere, the topmost layers of the atmosphere where space weather occurs. The finding, detailed in August 11th issue of Geophysical Research Letters, is surprising because scientists don't think that the ionosphere and troposphere, the lower part of the atmosphere where terrestrial weather happens, affected one another. But now they believe that they do, and they talk about Earth's electric blanket and other things like that. First, on the topic of the internet, on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be streaming a live radio broadcast at kmhc.org, or if you go to myspace.com/Ansary, I embedded a little player there that opens automatically. And we are using MySpace as a mirror to duplicate the clone, to clone the signal and duplicate it several times over. And you can do that by going to the root site at KMHC and creating a new MySpace profile and posting it there. I say that because we don't have a lot of stream capability for the next few months. I have been told that we will have the capability to serve over 1,000 listeners by Halloween, and also by that time be able to take live phone calls. So what I'm trying to say is, hopefully by the year's out, I will be doing through the college station a national live radio call-in program. And I am looking forward to that. And we're going to go to 2 more phone calls. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, Alex.
Hey.
This is Jan again, and I have a Gandhi quote.
Oh, okay.
And it says, He says, whenever I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love has always won. There have always been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they may seem invincible, but in the end, they always fail.
That's true.
Yes. So,
Wow.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Yeah. On the topic of liars, propaganda spin masters failing, I want to tell you about my friend Marconi. Half hour before showtime tonight, I heard the Nazi propaganda go over 101 KUFO. And this man who thinks he represents you, who ought to be taken off the airwaves or ought to be complained about by the droves, I beg you, talked about how we should be killing, mowing down the Taliban at their funerals. He went through a long diatribe about criticizing the United States for not attacking the Taliban during a funeral, for driving by. He discussed that and moved into suggesting in this supposed comic bit, but it wasn't like you would think. It wasn't like he was pretending to be the president. This was his actual radio personality. This was his message. That in fact we should recruit more criminals, more gang members to get the job done. Because after all, those people, been killing each other since '85, and they won't have a problem with it. See, people get used to the idea that we don't own our radio stations anymore. People get used to the idea that guys like me go away, and the guys that move ahead are those that project this big brother police state that wants to do nothing except enslave you and the children that you have. Anything you have. Little pigs, let me in. It's insane. I don't want to go on too long about that. Call 101 KUFO. Let your voice be your weapon of choice. Let them know how you feel about this war on terror and 9/11, the official story, and the message that I have for them. And that is that they're traitors to this nation. And with that, we'll go to the next phone call. Go ahead, caller. Okay, and I guess that's it for the evening. And I think those that were able to get through tonight, and call Marconi, call 101 KUFO, and the purpose is to let them know that you know the truth, whether they know the truth or not. But most of all, that you don't approve of the radio station, and they don't come across to you as someone that serves the public interest. But that's only if you feel that way. Don't do it if you don't want to. But those are the numbers. And I left a long-winded message for them, telling them to expect many calls about 10 minutes before showtime. So enjoy it. Enjoy it. We went through a lot of information and a lot of announcements. Just to rehash, Aaron Russo is going to be on the program on September 28th. And we're trying to get a place for Wayne Madison to speak on November 1st or possibly the day before that here in Portland. He used to work for the NSA, and he also has been looking at government-sponsored terrorist activity in this nation for a long time. These people are everywhere. The information is everywhere. It's a river. It's flowing. But the systems of control, the propaganda ministers, guys like Marconi are trying to get you to believe a one world vision, a new world order, one way of looking at things, one product to buy, one radio station to listen to, one voice, one perspective. We're not that simple. We're human beings. We are not machines. We are not going to be automated little slaves. It's not going to happen. Not on my watch, not on your watch. Until next week, I'm Alex Ansary, reminding you the path to the ultimate truth, to defeating the tyrants, still starts within. Good night.